ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹੋਣਾ ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਨਾ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਿਰਫ ਗੇਮਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਫੋਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਧਿਆਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਮੋਸਟ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਤਾਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਨਾ। ਇਹ ਡਰ ਨਜਾਇਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਸੋਚ ਨੂੰ ਬਦਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਧਿਆਨ ਨਾਲ ਸੁਣਿਓ। ਕੁਝ ਟੀਨੇਜਰਸ ਲੇਜ਼ੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕਈਆਂ ਦਾ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ 'ਚ ਮਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਅਤੇ ਕਈਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ। ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਕੀ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਸ ਦੱਸਣ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ 13 ਤੋਂ 17 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ।
Hi everyone, welcome back to Gen Z Unfiltered with Ishkirat and Amrit. That video you just saw? Yeah, that was me speaking in Punjabi, my mother tongue. You guessed it. Today's topic is languages. Who's ready to get started? Ishkirat, you ready?
Oh, of course. I am really excited to see the great things we come up with today because languages, we all speak in them. We don't really talk about them.
That's actually very well said. Interesting point. Okay, let's get started. So,
Okay.
Ishkirat, what
Mhm.
role does language play for you?
Well, languages, of course, the most obvious one is communication. I can talk to you just like right now, we're talking in English, or I can talk to somebody else in Punjabi, I can talk to someone else in Hindi. It's the basic communication. I can share my ideas and expand something and create something with others just because we're able to share what we're thinking about. Above that, languages for me are a mean of connecting with people. So I can connect with people who speak English. I connect with people who speak Punjabi, and it just creates, like a sense of community. Another word, like, hey, it's cool that you speak Punjabi, especially in Canada. When you say like go out, like I work. So every time I'm there, I'm working and I get to see another person who speaks Punjabi, I will practice my Punjabi, hopefully with the hope that it's going to get better. And I can help them with whatever they need. They can help me with something if it need be. There's this community and communication, which is just so cool. What about you? What role does it play for you?
Yeah, I love how you said that, community and communication. It sounds so poetic. I love it.
Thank you.
But yeah, obviously, like you said, language is the key to communication and how we interact with each other and other human beings, right? It's important because through language, we can share our thoughts and ideas with the world. And without language, without this method of communication, our needs as humans, our wants and needs would not be fulfilled, right?
Yeah, and like languages are more than just what you're speaking, like sign language. It's done through hands. There's not mouth movement, but it's just so cool that the way they're able to communicate with one and another. Like imagine going back to a time when or a place where you and another individual cannot communicate. It'd be like a game of charades, a very interesting one. But messages get lost when you can't communicate with someone correctly. That's kind of where real languages come in as well, whether it be sign language, Punjabi, English, Farsi, French, Spanish, and there's so many of them. I could keep going.
Yeah, like you said, sign language is also body language, right? And even in acting, facial expressions is everything. That's how they communicate. That's how they get the message across.
I mean, with COVID, with masks, the eyebrows expression, just being able to raise your eyebrows or squint your eyes and people just know you're smiling, and it's just this welcoming sign. Now, I guess now that we're on the topic of how amazing languages are, what would you say are some of the advantages of being bilingual, especially in Canada and being able to speak more than one language? What is that like for you?
Yeah, so, well, being a bilingual youth, just helps me communicate with multiple people, right? Like learning multiple languages allows for brain growth and expansion, and it also gives me the experience and knowledge I need to communicate with people from multiple backgrounds. And knowing how to speak English and Punjabi lets me translate too when someone doesn't understand or anything, or even when I need help or vice versa, right? Like I can also use my experience of speaking both languages to provide insight about both cultures, Indian and Canadian. And yeah, it's just, oh wait, sorry, I messed up.
No, it's cool. Like, I think it's kind of interesting with being able to translate. Like, yes, there's a language barrier and you always want to communicate with the other person, So even while I'm at work and I'm conversating with someone or they're talking, and not everyone can speak every language. I would be interested in meeting someone though who could do that. That'd be pretty cool. but being able to help each other, which again goes back to that sense of community. And not to mention the ability to get jobs when you speak another language. It just opens doors for you. And you get to see the best of both worlds. Like, as someone who speaks English and Punjabi, I get to see the ideas that English speaking people come up with or that Punjabi speaking people come up with. And as someone who speaks both, I can combine them to maybe even make an idea that's bigger than that. Right? So.
Mm. Yeah, and also like people who speak multiple languages, it's known like scientifically that they have better memory, they have better problem solving skills, concentration, and even better listening skills than most people do.
Yeah. I guess with the advantages, what are there any disadvantages to being bilingual?
Personally, I don't think there's that many disadvantages. But one thing I've come across is looking for the right words and translation to explain something from English to Punjabi and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when I understand something in Punjabi, I have a difficult time explaining its meaning in English, right? And when there's something being said in English, I might have trouble translating it back to my family in Punjabi, right?
Yeah. And I think a great example of that would be with like idioms or song lyrics, which, like, if you are to listen to a Punjabi song, it's so beautiful in how it's said. But if you are to literally translate that into English and try to explain that to someone, it does sound kind of crazy. I've tried it, and you have to sit there like, the meaning and the emotion behind it is this, but it's saying this. It's an awkward place to be put in, trying to explain an idiom or lyrics and trying to explain that, metaphor behind it.
Yeah, like you said, like Punjabi is a beautiful language, right? But the thing, we use a lot of metaphors, especially in songs and poems and even like expressions and that. We use a lot of metaphors, and so it's really hard to literally translate it, which is why I get so lost on what words to use sometimes.
And I mean, another lens to put this into is sometimes, even though you're not speaking the same language as another, you can understand the emotion behind it. So, like when I'm at school, I have friends who don't speak Punjabi, but say something irritates me, and I'm like, oh, right? There's no English word for it, but they understand what I mean. Like, oh my God, I made an error. Like, they get that emotion behind it, which is also pretty cool. And going off of this, being able to translate this, what I'm about to say is not so much of a disadvantage, but just something I experienced. Trying to write like essays or such in English or in like social studies and trying to think of the right word. Like in my head, I can think of the Punjabi or Hindi word. I'm like, oh, it sounds something like this, but what is the exact English word to describe exactly what I mean? You know?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I've never experienced that at school per se with the essays, but yeah, with the translations, it's just so hard finding the right word sometimes.
Yeah. And it's cool that we can speak different languages. Punjabi, I learned because my parents spoke it. It's my mother tongue. And sometimes people don't have the right environment set up for them, or they live in a condition or such where they aren't able to pick that language up. What do you have to say about that? Do you think it is important to learn your mother tongue?
Again, personally, I think it's really important because I've been learning it since I was a kid and I want to learn it, right? So for me, that culture to connect back to Punjab, to India, it's really important for me. But like you said, everyone has different situations and circumstances. So not everyone gets to learn their mother tongue. And some people may not even want to, right? Which is okay. But I feel like for those people who don't know their mother tongue, especially if we're talking about Punjabi diaspora, some kids, like our peers, Canadian kids, they may not be as fluent in Punjabi, but there's so much pressure on them and they get judged for not knowing Punjabi, for not speaking it right. But I think it's more of a personal choice, and we shouldn't judge others based on whether they know their mother tongue or not. It's just a form of communication at the end of the day. And if you can understand what they're saying, then there's no problem, right?
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's super cool that we can speak our mother tongue, but it doesn't mean that someone else is any less than me just because they don't speak it. Like, I would want to pass it forward because it's like history, you learn from it, you grow from it. So I want to pass it down for that experience. Like, if we talk about indigenous cultures where their language was lost, today they talk about being able to speak that language. And I think it's different where you're forced to not speak a language, as many indigenous cultures were, versus having the choice and you choose that I can't do this, I don't want to do this, that's fine. It's up to your choice. You can't force somebody to do it. And I would say something interesting that comes out of this, even kind of off topic, but not quite, is kids here, such as our peers, they speak a form of Punjabi which is not necessarily the same as spoken in India or regions of Punjab. Like the dialects change in a way. And I don't know how to explain it necessarily, but it's the result of speaking English and you combine that. Sometimes it's like a literal translation of English. And I've heard this with so many of my peers. And I think it's kind of cool. Like languages evolve. Even English has evolved if you look back to like Shakespearean time versus now. And languages will continue to evolve. So we can't hold someone to like, you have to be able to speak this. It's inevitable. We are going to change. The world will change. We do have to move forward with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it just makes sense for evolution of languages to happen, right? With time, everything changes. With new generations, everything changes. And again,
with new ideas.
Yeah, as long as you can connect with another human being through your words and your language, it should be okay, right? And it shouldn't really matter what language that is. But again, personally, for me, I really enjoy knowing and speaking, reading and writing Punjabi. So I think I want to pass it on to next generations and I want to teach it to as many people as I can, because I do feel like, especially in Canada now, that the vast majority is learning English and we're forced to learn English in schools. It's important to have a piece of your identity and your culture with you in any way possible. And for me, that's just my language.
Absolutely. I think if I wasn't speaking Punjabi, I would not be the same person as I am today. And I guess going off of this pressure even today to be able to speak English, this goes beyond just being in Canada, even in India. Throughout years, English has somehow been put above other languages almost as a symbol of status, which it shouldn't be. If you can speak a language, you can communicate. That should be important, whether you speak someone else's language or not. Like, why do we feel it's so necessary to judge someone or mock someone just because they don't speak the same language or speak in a different accent? Like, it makes no sense. Why? They can communicate with you. They're trying your best. So what authority do you hold to be judgmental of that? You know?
Yeah, I do. I understand that, because even now I hear stories of like people in Punjab in India speaking more English and less Punjabi, right? And I mean, it's okay, but we just shouldn't judge anyone, right? Like, if you want to speak English, if you want to learn it, sure, that's great. Like, that's an awesome thing. But if you don't at the same time, because I know a lot of people too, they're called desi, right? Or fob is what we call them if they speak Punjabi and they don't know English. But I don't see the problem with that, because it's the language they want to speak in. They want to communicate in Punjabi. So what's the problem? Like, it just comes to judging at the end of the day. And if as humans, we all can just learn to accept each other as who we are and just be loving and caring and kind and just understand that everyone has different circumstances, the world would be such a better place.
Yeah. If we could just start putting humanity above all, I think humans could come back. In all honesty, I think humanity is dying and we need to bring it back.
I agree.
So just be human. They have nice values, nice beliefs. Go talk to them or try to talk to them. You know,
we talk about languages dying out, but actually all of humanity, kindness is dying out, which is what we need to do, right?
Focus on kindness. There's Gurdas Man's song Ki Banu Duniya Da. There's lyrics in that where he says, I can't remember how it goes. You know what I'm talking about?
It's he says har boli sikho.
Sikho, yeah, sikhni vi chahidi. Har pakki vekh ke kachi nahi taidi. Exactly. So if you speak a language, that's cool. There's no pressure to learn another language. And if you speak one language, it's not rightful, or it's not kind, it's not humane to mock someone else because they don't speak that. Humans are different. We should learn to appreciate those differences.
Exactly. Well, that was an awesome conversation about language.
Absolutely.
I think everyone watching, thank you for watching and supporting our show. And I hope you learned some new things about language. And Yes.
Tell us, what
Well,
language do you speak? Leave it in the comments.
what language do you speak? And do you think it's important to learn your mother tongue? Let us know. Well, we'll see you next Wednesday on Gen Z Unfiltered. Bye, Ashkirat. Bye, viewers. And peace out, everyone.
ਕੁਝ ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ ਚੰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ। ਮੇਰੇ ਮਾਰਕਸ ਵੀ ਠੀਕ ਹੀ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ 'ਚ ਪੂਰੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ। ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ 10ਵੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਹਟੀ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਨੰਬਰ ਵੀ ਪੂਰੇ ਟੌਪ ਵਾਲੇ ਲਿਆਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਗਾਂਹ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਰ ਪਾਊਂਗੀ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਯਕੀਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਛ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੀ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਦਿਖਾਊਂਗੀ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮੈਂ ਵਾਲੰਟੀਅਰਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ, ਨਾਟਕਾਂ 'ਚ ਭਾਗ ਲਿਆ, ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਵਾਰਡ ਜਿੱਤੇ, ਉਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਤਾਂ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਨੰਬਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਲਾਂ ਵੇਖਦੀਆਂ, ਉਹ ਹੁਨਰ ਅਤੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਭਾਲਦੇ ਨੇ। ਲਾਇਬ੍ਰੇਰੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਵਾਲੰਟੀਅਰ ਕਰਕੇ, ਕੁਝ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਨਾਲ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਕਸੈਪਟ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਚਾਂਸ ਵੱਧਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇੱਕ ਟੀਨੇਜਰ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਲੰਟੀਅਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਰੈਜ਼ੂਮਿਆਂ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛੀਆਂ ਲੱਗਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਟਾਈਮ ਸਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ ਸਕਿੱਲਸ ਅਤੇ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਸਕਿੱਲਸ ਵੀ ਵੱਧਦੇ ਨੇ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਲੰਟੀਅਰ ਕਰਵਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਾਂ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਲਾਇਬ੍ਰੇਰੀ ਦੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ 'ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਪਰ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ। ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲ 'ਚ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਵਰਕ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਕੇ। ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਗ੍ਰੈਜੂਏਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟਸ, ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਦੇ ਘੰਟੇ ਅਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਵੀ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨੇ। ਪਰ ਕੁਝ ਟੀਨੇਜਰਸ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲਸ ਇੱਕ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਚਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਮੈਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਅਤੇ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਮਿਲਦਾ। ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦਾ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਟੀਮ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਅਤੇ ਮਾਲ ਵੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ। ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ, ਮਾਰਕੀਟਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ। ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਵੱਡੀਆਂ ਸਕਾਲਰਸ਼ਿਪਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਕਰਨਾ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗ੍ਰੈਜੂਏਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਵੀ। ਜੂਨੀਅਰ ਅਚੀਵਮੈਂਟ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਦਾ ਨੰਬਰ 1 ਲਰਨਿੰਗ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਆ। ਇਹ ਸਭ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲ, ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਅਤੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜੌਬ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸਫਲ ਰਹੇਗਾ। ਬਸ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਦੇਣ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਰਾਹ ਦਿਖਾਉਣ। ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਬਣਨਗੇ। ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਲਾਉਣੀ ਹੈ। ਕੁਝ ਬਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੇਮ ਬੰਦ ਕਰੋ, ਉੱਠੋ ਅਤੇ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਓ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰਨਾ। ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੈ ਅਮਰੀਤ ਗਿੱਲ ਅਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖੀ।